All right, now we're good.
I would like to welcome everyone to the Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Bellingham Planning Board. Before going further, I'd like Nick to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And for those out there, we could just keep the people in California in our thoughts and prayers and be appreciative.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item tonight is continued public hearing on Prospect Village.
Yeah, so Prospect Hill Village, they requested a continuance to February 13th, so that's the next meeting. The deadline for the decision, that's been extended, it's still March 31st, we've got plenty of time. So what I would recommend is, well, granting the continuance to February 13th, and if, based on that meeting, if we have to extend that decision deadline again, then we can do that, but.
Do I have a second?
Okay.
We have a motion to move the continuation to our first meeting in February 13th. Do we have any discussion? For purpose of attendance and calling for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, I,
Steve, I.
and Liz, you're here.
I'm here.
So that motion passed unanimous. Can you tell me about LMP?
Yeah.
And where we stand?
Sure, so LMP, that is another request to continue. They're requesting to continue to February 27th. They're actually working out some coordination with our legal counsel, so they've made some pretty good progress, you know, behind the scenes, but they're gonna have, I think, some more information to present on that February 27th date.
Okay,
That deadline has also been extended to March 31st, so we got plenty of time there as well for the decision.
okay.
Second.
I haven't even asked for entertain a motion yet. We have a motion on the floor, it's been made and seconded to extend the continuation to February 27th, the second meeting in February. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, on.
Steve, I.
That motion passes unanimously. Continue public hearing on the development plan for Maple Street. Assessors map 37 lots 3 and 3.
Yep, and I would also include the continuation of the public hearing for the.
You want to go to
scenic
number
road.
1?
Yeah, I would. I mean, they're all the same.
Scenic road special permit continuation for Maple Street for the same owners.
Excellent. Want me to
Bring us up to
bring
speed.
you up to speed? All right, I'll go. I know that this has been around for quite some time, so I'll give just some give the history very quickly on the project. Shane Oates is also on Zoom. I know he had to cover 2 meetings tonight, so he's the applicant's engineer. Good evening, Shane.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. So just to kind of give the update, so this project, it was submitted earlier this year, and if you recall, the biggest concern was really with the building when it was first submitted. It had the loading docks. There was some concerns about vehicular access around the building, all these things. And there was also the requirement scenic road permit, as well as a special permit, because they were looking for a pretty sizable reduction in parking with the original layout. So that flex parking special permit was submitted after, same with the scenic road permit. And then there was a redesign of the project. There was a smaller footprint building, a different use, not really one that was in tune with, storage with the loading docks. Now it's more indicative of like a contractor, condo type establishment. There was some back and forth with the fire department as well, just making sure that there was plenty of access around the building with the largest fire apparatus we have. And with that, that's where we kind of landed with the final revised submission that you have in your packets. With that, there were a few different, rounds of peer review. The latest one, or the last one that Shane responded to, had some very minor comments that was more related to adding snow storage areas, making sure that the fire department truck turn analysis had, ample room around the building. There was the monument sign that it didn't quite meet the setbacks for our zoning. There was also some long-term O&M items that needed to be fixed in the stormwater plan. And then there were also some items that the peer reviewer recommended that they become conditions of approval if the project were to move forward. And those included some cut fill analyses, testing, additional testing, I should say, within the stormwater systems, which is pretty standard condition that we use now for our decisions. NIPD's permit, and then also structural plans for the retaining walls. So that's kind of where we landed with the peer review. So that's been pretty much satisfied. The other items, so the scenic roads permit, we were looking for additional information the last time we met, and Shane did include additional information regarding trees that are going to be removed within the right of way, as well as compensatory trees. So he's over the requirement, which I think required to be 4, but there's 10 trees that are going to be proposed. I also have some additional recommendations that I think would be helpful in the scenic road if the board decides that it's time to draft a decision for this. The other part of the scenic road permit besides landscaping is sound, which we had a pretty lengthy discussion earlier on in the process about needing a sound study or not needing a sound study. And that was when the project initially had the loading docks and looked like it indicated more truck traffic, which I think was the concern. Now the building had been revised. There's a couple or a few overhead doors, and it's definitely more in line with what you would see for like a contractor renting the space. Doesn't really meet any requirement for a traffic study in that sense. And I think utilizing similar conditions that we have in the past regarding outdoor storage and making sure that the doors are closed when there's work being done in the building, I think that would really satisfy the requirements of the scenic road permit. And then,
Similar to what we did in Maple Street.
yeah, we've done it on quite a few projects
Yep.
now. So that's the scenic road portion. And then the last portion, so that there was the special permit that was requested for, it's the flex parking special permit, which is something that we see very frequently with this board, because a lot of the larger industrial buildings require much more parking, even though they have minimal employees that use them. Initially with this project, there was a pretty substantial request for a reduction. I forget what it was, Shane, but it was probably like 20% reduction, maybe.
Yeah, right around there, Rob.
Yeah, so now that's been minimized significantly because the building has changed. And really there's 30 required parking spaces and they have 28. So I think that's completely in line with that flex parking special permit. So with that, I know that was kind of a lot, but that's where we're at. Ultimately, obviously, I know, the board has this information that they're looking at. If you have more questions or comments, obviously now is definitely a great time, but ultimately I would recommend that you can either, if you decide that it's time to render a decision, which in my opinion, I believe that should be the next step. I mean, you could close the public hearing, but I'd recommend continuing it, and then that way we can have a discussion while I actually have a draft in front of you to discuss like we have in the past. But, that's what I have.
Have we talked about fleet trucks and come to an agreement on that?
I don't think we really talked much about fleet vehicles. I know I think there was a concern previously because of the way it was designed. There was a lot of paved space in the back and with outdoor storage and stuff, but
Yeah, with 28 parking spaces, if that turned into 28 fleet trucks. I guess I guess a question for the applicant is, one concern I would have would be the number of fleet trucks that were there. Is there a direction that you think that would be reasonable for how many? I mean, some of these would be for parking places for people that work in there. Some of it would be for visitors. I'm assuming there could be some for trucks that would be servicing this. Is there, I'm kind of hesitant to leave it carte blanche maybe, but if there was a direction that you wanted to go with as far as limiting maybe fleet trucks that could go into here, that would make me feel more comfortable. You know what I mean by fleet trucks? Like at least it's not a big enough place to run an Amazon, but if you put something in there that had 28 trucks that had to be were delivery trucks, then that would be a different thing than what we're thinking this is.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, that's not the intent at all. The applicant actually has a few interested parties right now. There's 5 spaces total. Each space is 3,000 square feet. So this is really a contractor's building, electrician, stuff like that, maybe a landscape company. The exterior parking spaces as well are 9 by 18. So you're not even fitting box trucks in there. The only place you could really park anything larger than a pickup truck, for example, would be through the front overhead doors inside the building, for loading and unloading. And that's part of what we did. Instead of the truck docks with the 18-wheeler trucks, which was already a challenge in and of itself, what we're showing now are just some overhead garage doors. So if there's a box truck that an electrician needs to drop his supplies off, he can pull in and do so. But I don't think there would be any issues with any stipulations for prohibiting fleet type businesses or vehicles being stored outside. I think the intent is that when everyone's gone at the end of the day, the parking lot should probably be empty. So I think that's fine.
maybe just restrict the outdoor fleet storage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah, that's something you guys could work out. That'd be satisfactory with me at least.
Yep.
So,
Just taking a look at the rendering as well as the landscape plan. The rendering calls out dogwoods and azaleas. The plans call it dogwoods and azaleas, and the rendering has everything. Which is completely different.
The renderings are just so that the board could get an idea of what the building would look like from the road, as well. There's a rendering, I believe, from the highway. The stamped landscape plan is the plan that's to be installed. And those are just based on, our landscape architect and experience in Bellingham and other towns, just the type of plant. We have a lot of flowering shrubs and stuff like that. So I definitely, the plantings you see on the architectural renderings are not accurate. I'll leave it at that.
Does anyone have an issue with reading?
I had a question about that as well. So,
Yeah, sure, Dick.
the screening on the renderings, I like there's significantly more, trees on the rendering as compared to the plan, if I'm reading the plan correctly. So, and we've also learned the hard way about understanding the maturity of the plantings when they go in and all of that. And the plan may say that, but the writing is way too small for me to read it. So I would have I like the rendering
Okay,
screening because it looks like it's pretty robust screening, with mature trees. So, and the rendering shows far more trees than the plans do. So,
yeah, we could, so right now there's 10 dogwoods proposed, 4-inch caliper dogwoods, so. Yeah, obviously it's hard to plant things a lot larger than that, but I'm sure the applicant would be willing to add some more. So right now in the front, we have 6 trees in the very front and then 4 on the side of the driveway. I'm sure we could add a few other trees in there to get it a little thicker for you guys.
yeah, because the rendering shows 10
Yeah,
trees.
yeah, we could kind of disperse, 4 additional trees or whatever, and maybe something different than the dogwood to break it up a little bit as well. I think we could probably do that. So,
Yeah, so are you gonna submit a revised landscaping plan?
so if we could maybe, I don't know what Rob thinks, maybe we could add that as a condition of approval, just to add, whatever, 4 to 6 additional mature trees. We're happy to do that. And then send it along for Rob to review if that works.
Yeah, because in the past, we've had when there's inconsistencies between renderings and plans, and years go by or months go by, and we're trying to remember what we've said, what our intention was, things get lost in the translation. So I would like to see whatever the actual landscaping plan is.
Sure.
Memorialized somehow. And is there anything else that's not accurate on these renderings that we should be aware of?
No, that's really it. I think everything else, just looking at it briefly, everything else, and that's one of the first things I noticed too. I think the architect submitted a highway view, Rob, correct?
Yeah, I can pull that out.
Which is helpful as well. So, but yeah, I think the rest of the renderings are fairly accurate with the building materials, the doors. We added some windows to break up the building a little bit in the front and the back as well. So,
And are those trees that are on the highway rendering, are they actual trees?
so I don't know. I'm guessing that they just took a Photoshop and then converted it into their rendering. Let me just see what he has. It's been a bit since I looked at it. So I don't know if those are existing trees or not. That's a good question. We do have 4 proposed trees along the entryway. Let me just see my plan really quickly.
If I step in just for
Yeah,
1 second, because
sure.
I think one thing that we did it was the last scenic road permit that we did, because that was the first one that I was the planner for in drafting the decision. I know I spelled out specifically where the limit of disturbance is, which would be the erosion control line in most cases, that the vegetation remains with, outside of that. And one thing that I would like to do with this, if it's okay with the board, obviously it's your decision, but I'm gonna pull up the plans actually, just so I can really explain this better. Shane, I apologize if this is giving you vertigo.
No, I'm okay.
Does anyone have the capabilities pulling up on their iPhone Yahoo Maps to see what it looks like right now?
Yahoo Maps.
Or whatever, Google, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I will-
I can pull it up on this screen. I
I
just
will remember that.
Dated yourself there, Bill.
Yahoo Maps, all right. I'm sorry, Bill, that was rude.
It's all right.
I
won't forget.
I don't know, they show us a view from.
If it's like something called Google Earth or something. I don't know.
Something to that effect.
Perhaps you can check AOL Maps.
I have a long memory.
All right.
I don't know how to get down there.
I can pull it up on this in a minute, but just what I was
Yeah,
going,
it's pretty well covered right now.
But they're gonna.
Yeah, but they can only go so far in the disturbance.
Right.
what I was going to say was on like a final revised
Rob,
plan.
how far off the road is it? Off the highway is the building going to be, do you know? I can tell.
I know off the highway line. Cause there's the side setback that's shown. I'll have to go through the plans. Here, hold that thought. Let me just get through this really quickly. So. This is the grading plan, which is gonna show the farthest limits of the disturbance. But this is the property line along the frontage. Right now, limited disturbance because there is a water quality unit that's being proposed here, or not a water quality unit, a drainage manhole. I think this limited disturbance line can get tightened up because we do have a lot of trees that do encroach into the right of way. And I think it's beneficial to try and keep as much of a stand between the road and the business as possible, because they're already, I mean, it's scrubby, but it's mature trees. It's better than what you're gonna get if you plant nursery grade stuff. So I think what I would recommend is that between the combination of a landscape plan where they're going to be planting new nursery trees along the slope in the front, if we can hold the vegetation and retain as much in the front here, so basically it's just an opening where the driveway is. That's similar to what they did at Amazon where they kept the stand, which actually looked nice. It's gonna be much more substantial at Amazon than here, but it's still nice to retain some type of street trees. When you're planting street trees, you're trying to replicate what's been damaged, so can we?
You want to reduce the damage.
Yeah, try to keep what you can, to the greatest extent practicable, and then that's really the purpose of the scenic road permit is to try and retain as much street trees as possible. And, obviously this site has some constraints just because there's a lot of ledge, so everything's getting filled, but I think there is a way to, between adding maybe a few more trees along the front and then keeping some, we can condition it that that limited disturbance line tucks right up against the limited grading. And anything beyond that in the front, can't touch. And there'll be an erosion control line staked there for construction. So it's easy enough to verify that this is the trees that need to remain.
And that would be in the plan though, too, right?
Correct.
As well as
Yeah.
It
potentially.
would definitely be both in the landscape plan with Brian's point and also
Yeah.
what you're proposing.
Condition.
We're gonna want that in the plan though, right?
Yeah, and I think that's something very, very simple that I think can be done. So, but that is what I would recommend, and I would include that too, in this pocket here along the side where 495 is and over here, basically just where they're gonna be grading is where the trees will be cut, so.
Is that all? So. If you don't mind, wave your cursor over
So this is the grading,
all
proposed
of that
grading,
being,
and then this pocket here, this is remaining, and then up top here is all remaining.
so the elevation lines is, all the trees are leaving there.
Correct, and that's where I actually do believe that this rendering is pretty accurate because it shows, if I go back to it, it kind of shows where there's not a whole lot of vegetation over here being shown. But anyway, that's,
I think that's a great idea, Rob. The more screening and I think our collective belief is the more screening, the better. I would love to see screening off of, somehow screening what you can see from 495. What I'm concerned about is sort of having a de facto billboard on the side of this building that's visible through. Then if there's an opportunity to plant trees across the top of it so we don't see it, and that was a big deal for the Amazon building, is we really don't want to see
That's fair.
Rob, if I could interject, I don't know if you can let me share my screen quickly.
Sure.
I can show the board something I pulled up really quickly. Because I know one of the gentlemen there had a question about how far off the highway we are.
You should be good to go now, Shane.
Okay. Let's see, share. Okay, so everyone can see this. Here's 495 right here. Can you see that, Rob?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, so here's our parcel. Here's 0 Maple Street. Here's our property line. So we're about 6 to 8 feet off the property line with the retaining wall. This here, you can see there are a lot of mature trees here, the entire length of the development already. So there's a really good buffer there. And then if we just take a measurement from where the wall will be about, oh, of course. Let's try that again. So like to the edge of the actual highway, you're looking at a little over 100 feet there. So that's a really good natural buffer to the roadway. It's very thick in there. I mean, I've driven up and down that section many times. I'm not even sure if you'll see a lot of the building at all, to be honest, because you sit so much lower when you're driving here on the highway. So, but I just wanted to share that with everyone.
And the elevations too, because that retaining wall in the back, it's actually a cut at that point. So the building will be kind of recessed. Well, just like that elevation showed, it's kind of recessed. There's gonna be that mound.
Yeah, if you look at the third rendering, it kind of buried somewhat the building inspector.
And, but to your point too, Brian, you bring up a really good point about, advertising and such. And the good thing is that, this use, I wouldn't anticipate something like that. But of course, we can't really base decisions on anticipation. But, I can talk to Shane too and just, I don't really see an issue with putting something in the conditions that there is no, yeah, I don't think that's the intent here. They have their ID sign. And that's, this isn't really the type of use that would, it's gonna garner people off 495 from miles around to come.
Conceptually, Dave's Hot Chicken could say, hey, I want to put a sign right there.
That's a good point.
Next exit, right? So
That's fair.
Well, we know where you shop for chicken.
Yeah, we spoke with the building inspector early on about possible signage, and it's not allowed in town, so there won't be any billboards or anything of that nature. It's just not permissible.
And that could be a condition as well, just to tighten it up.
Yeah, so just in general, the more we can make sure that we're going above and beyond to screen things from that would be great from my point of view. And then the rendering shows a van either parked or leaving. But they're either way, it's facing the wrong way and it's blocking the fire lane.
Correct.
It's supposed to be one way, so,
It's one way in, one way out. Yes.
okay.
So that truck is facing the incorrect way.
And it's not a parking spot, but I just want that to be.
Absolutely not. And there's no doors on the sides for any type of delivery anyways, so.
Would there be any business signage,
Oh.
business name signs on the property?
Right now, the only, excuse me, the only proposed signage is the monument sign, which will be out front. It'll just have, it'll adhere to the sign regulations of the bylaw, and it'll just have each business sign there. It won't be anything significant.
That can be tied into the conditions if that's the intent.
Yeah, what we'll typically do, for the monument signs is actually just put in the conditions that there's gonna have to be, an approval with the building commissioner, because he's the one that goes through there is a sign permit that you have to get.
Yeah, what I think I heard Shane say though is that, there isn't gonna be fluorescent yellow sign, or anything like that.
No,
you know, so the intent is that we're not doing that, and I don't wanna limit it,
Which is condition.
but that's what I'm thinking is, it's conditioned that the signage is on the monument outside, or something that you guys can agree on, but the intent is not to have huge signs everywhere.
Yeah,
As Brian was saying,
we-
495 or.
Yeah, like we have pretty stringent sign regulations in town. I'm not extremely familiar with them, but I know like there's requirements, like you can't have flashing signs. I think if you have something that changes, there's a specific time frame. Like it can't just keep, it's so like, you know, you're not gonna have somebody who has an epileptic seizure
Yeah.
looking at these things.
I'm
On the side
perfectly
of the
fine with this, what he's proposing.
Yep.
We're trying to keep it in that spirit. How do we keep it in that spirit?
I have no questions.
One final comment.
Certainly.
Did Chief Miller at one point, or maybe somebody on the board express a concern about maybe a lack of bollards around the building for safety around
He
the
did
doors?
bring it up. I believe it was addressed.
Yeah, so we met with Chief Miller. Was that Tuesday or last week?
Yeah, last week.
Last week to discuss, just to make sure that he was okay, because Shane actually, he submitted a separate comment response letter to the fire chief with all of his concerns and just making sure that he was okay with everything, which he was. So, because I know I mentioned, it might have been me, because I was mentioning pedestrian refuge.
Yeah.
Like previously, the design had the 24-foot drive aisle that was right up against the building.
Yeah.
So you had, you know, if you were exiting the door from the back of the building and a car's flying by, you know, there's not much there. The site now, to allow for access for the vehicles, there's the 5-foot pedestrian aisle around the entire building now. So, and that stripe that's marked, that's, you know, to make sure vehicles stay out of there and they can park. Of course, the good thing is that this shouldn't really have a whole heck of a lot of traffic going around the building, but.
I just have, 2 questions or comments. At our last meeting, someone mentioned that this used to be called a certain area in Bellingham.
Fawn Hill, right?
Okay. Are you incorporating that into the name of the building?
There aren't any plans to, but I could certainly check with the property owner.
Okay,
If Rob, if you could send me that name, I can send it along to Rich and see if he can maybe put that on the monument sign, like the top placard or something along those lines. I don't see
Sure.
why not, so.
Yeah, no,
Sure.
absolutely.
and then, I know we had a question about sightlines.
Yep.
I know the sightlines are up to code. Rob, is there any need to put a sign near there to allow people that there's a building coming up or
Well, you have.
trucks entering?
Well, it's not gonna be I don't think that this is gonna be a space that's gonna have trucks entering and
Okay.
exiting frequently, because it's not really that big traffic generator. It's
All right.
gonna be more of, what I would anticipate is you'll see some vans or pickup trucks leaving in the morning and coming back in the afternoon.
Yep.
But that would pretty much be it.
So you don't think we needed signage before you get there?
I don't believe so. And the other thing too is I would leave it to the public safety officer, because I mean, they have a sign committee in town where they discuss these things at great length.
Okay,
I'm not part of that committee, but I know, you know, I wouldn't anticipate this really requiring that. Because there are ample sight distances. The other thing too that's nice about this is that the driveway is going to be elevated because
Mhm.
it's a fill, so you have really good distances looking either side of you when you're elevated up.
Okay.
And if you look at street view from the bridge, it's a very straight length of road.
But it's short then.
It's not, it's well over the 350
Okay.
feet, so.
Yeah, if, just, sorry to interrupt, our neighbor across the street, so I've been out there a few, obviously, quite a few times. They have full 18-wheelers pulling in and out, so they seem to do okay, but obviously, you know, if someone's coming over that bridge going 70 instead of
Mhm.
35, that's gonna be a problem regardless.
Yeah,
But
that's not,
that's
that's a
something,
better
yeah,
delicate way of
hard,
putting it.
Yeah,
that's something hard for us to control, but, yeah, we exceed the AASHTO site distance requirements and I chatted with the peer review engineer early on about that to make sure. But yeah, our impact or potential issues will be less than the site across the street. And I watched them a good bit, so they seem to make it okay. I never saw anything too dangerous, but yeah.
That's fine.
I'm still a little concerned about that as someone that traverses that to and fro every day that, I could see the potential for, bad things to happen there. I know that technically the peer review was fine with it. But I just from experience, I know that people move on that stretch. There's Amazon trucks all the time on that road. And I struggle with I thought the idea when we talked about it early on was to kind of move it away from that. And it's moved back. I understand there's some challenges of where this goes, but I struggle with that to this day, is that driveway is gonna cause some problems. One way to maybe address that is a condition where there's no retail sales. I think we don't wanna have any retail sales there, people coming in, customers coming in and customers leaving.
yeah, I mean, yeah, let me, I'll tell you what I would recommend is, because these are all very good recommendations for conditions, and I think getting them down on paper and reviewing them might be the best way, kind of like what we did before. So why don't I will take that into account. I'll look into something and I can talk to Shane and the applicant as well, because obviously, you know, we're all just trying to make sure that's the best project that we can get for the town, without making it too constricting, but I'll look into it. All right.
So right now, you would entertain a motion. I mean, you'd like to have us make a motion for you to draft a decision.
Yeah, I think that would be the next step if everybody's okay. I know that this has been a long road for this project. It's been redesigned a couple times and I feel it's a lot better than the first submission that was in front of us, so.
I'd like to have one of those conditions that you be able to sign to the town of Bellingham.
Please no.
So is this one that typically we do a positive and a negative one with the idea that we're moving forward on this, one way or another, or
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to write one if that's
Okay, that's
good, and if we're okay with a positive one, there's gonna be three different decisions. There's gonna be one for the development plan approval, one for scenic road, one for special permit, so.
I don't think it's presumptuous for him to draft a positive decision, and we can review the conditions and the changes to the plans and whatever else changes that need to be, and then we can make an informed decision whether to move forward on it.
Yeah,
that's fine.
that sounds like a motion.
Do we need a motion?
You
You
don't-
just go and do it?
no, I can just do it.
Yeah.
When's the deadline,
March, no, hold
the
on,
decision deadline? We got time to?
we have time. It's, I have it right here, February 28th, so end of February, so I would just recommend continuing the public hearing to February 13th, and, we'll have the decision there, and I feel pretty confident we'll be able to close this out.
We got
What do we have on
1:13?
February 13th?
We'll have It's actually, yeah, we have Prospect Hill, and I think that's the only thing right now.
Okay.
I thought we continued everything.
We might,
It's gotta come to roost.
we might have 211 South Main Street for that one. That's the peer review, but we haven't gotten the peer review back yet for that, so. I don't envision that would be a lengthy conversation, so I think we're in okay shape.
Okay.
And also, before you do, if you are going to make a motion to continue, we do have a member of the public here in case there's any public comment,
Okay,
just to.
so do you have anything you want to add to the discussions?
No, I don't think so. Just a quiet hill would be nice.
Okay,
And I mean, I agree with Brian. I was always concerned about the site distance.
Yeah.
Heading south. If they're gonna build up the entrance and exit from the street level now.
Yeah.
That would improve it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you come over that bridge and there's not a lot. I mean, the only
Right, you
way
run
the other
over.
side gets, you don't have somebody traveling that distance.
Mhm.
People going north have plenty of time to
Yes, they
see
do.
somebody pulling out of there.
Yeah,
But pulling out of D and D there is tough if you're going south
yeah,
in the car. You really can't see there, but.
So I'll move to continue the hearing until February 13th.
perfect.
I'll second it.
we have a motion for made and seconded, continue the hearing to February 13th. Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
That motion passes unanimously. Shane, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
See you
Have a
in our
great
next
evening.
meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Shane. We can, we'll touch base on Monday if that works.
That works fine. Thank you, Rob.
Excellent. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have we had a chance to review the minutes from the January 9th meeting?
Yeah, I had a couple of things.
Okay,
So. On the first one, we laid on the definitive subdivision 306, you laid out 4 separate waiver requests, and you kind of skirt around the fact that, basically said the board members not voting on the waivers, but it doesn't say that we didn't grant the waivers. And I was thinking that we need to somehow work some language in there. The waivers were not given for the 4 items requested, or something that ties that out, because it was a big bone of contention. Is that something that makes sense to change?
I think the more important thing is that the waivers were granted in the decision. Like the minutes are just.
Yeah, but the way these, I mean, they laid out the four waivers requested, but it doesn't say what happened. Because we didn't vote on them, but. Yeah,
Does it say that, I don't think it even says that it wasn't voted upon. I think it just said
also
that,
indicated that he is agreeable to the board members not voting on the waivers.
I would, if it makes sense, I would just add that, make it very descriptive in here that the board did not vote on the waivers. I don't want to say that the board did not grant the waivers, because then people might imply that a vote was taken and it failed to pass, which is not the case.
Yeah, I didn't
would
want that
just-
to happen.
They
How
weren't
how do you
gonna-
fix the
Yeah,
language?
I would just,
we just never
It
voted.
never
Yeah.
came up, we didn't do the waiver.
I would just,
We didn't, there were no waivers given that night.
correct, I would just indicate that the
No
planning
waivers
board,
were given.
decided to not vote on the waivers.
I think that ties it up better.
Yeah,
Make it another, yeah,
yeah,
did we not, did we deny? Just we didn't vote. And what else do you think?
okay, and then. I like the fact that, the top one with the 306 says, says that the defined subdivision plans depicted a 200+ foot roadway terminating with a cul-de-sac. So that defined exactly what that is. But the WS one doesn't do that same thing. And I think that to alleviate confusion, where this is procedural, can we put what was it, a two lot subdivision with a cul-de-sac on it?
Yep.
Something like that, just to clarify what we were doing. Because it's not the whole boat plan or whatever.
Yeah, I can, include the roadway length terminated with a cul-de-sac and just the.
Just
the through-
That's some cul-de-sac, yeah, it's not a other thing.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I had, if the board's okay with, or has anything else.
It's fine.
I'll move to approve the minutes as amended.
I was second. The motion on the floor approved and seconded to approve the minutes as amended based on this meeting. Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, I.
Bill, I. Steve, I.
That motion also passes unanimously. Annual report,
annual report. I keep forgetting that this is in the Dropbox. Same thing happened with ZBA. So this annual report, this is just something that the town clerk puts together for all departments annually, so. It's very basic, we could hammer this thing out, for 10 pages of details, or short and sweet, which is really what we kind of should do. So it just pretty much outlines kind of the actions that were made, the approvals that were made, who's on the board. So, you don't really, it doesn't need to be a vote to approve this. It's more of just if there's any changes that anybody wants to add, I'll be happy to.
I think there was one that, Nick, I believe you were, we voted you the secretary.
That's been working really hard. I saw that as well.
I think I served the year before, so this one was your.
I saw that
Actually,
as well.
2 years before.
Yep.
That we were smirking at a second ago.
So I'm gonna update that on the first page and the last page as well.
is there any spot in here where you can make, mention we made appointments to the bylaw committee? Or is that not necessary?
We could, it wasn't included in the ZBA or the Concom
Okay,
annual report, so,
I'd rather be consistent.
yeah.
There was a time where the boards would all show up at the selectmen hearing and talk about these things.
Really?
Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, then we had all board meetings.
Brian, if you want to recommend that.
No, I mean,
I'll
those meetings
help
went
too.
on forever and,
It was Saturday usually.
yeah, it was long and.
Really?
I don't remember the Saturday part, but
Every board and committee in town.
yeah, everybody would
Yeah.
stand up and say, this is what we've done and we're.
Well, I guess this is what we do now is just
That's fine.
hand in a sheet that'll never be looked at, but. I will say one item to note, the warrant articles, that's actually pretty impressive that. There's a lot of work done in 2024, so well done to everybody. Citizens petitions on there, well done, so.
Our town's hearing back on the MBTA in the state.
I haven't heard back from our end.
Yeah.
There was the Milton ruling, so
Yeah.
that. I think that has painted a picture for towns that have not. Gone through the effort of.
They
trying-
extended the deadline, right, to July.
Correct, because basically the ruling was that the Attorney General has the right to enforce the regulations. The kicker is the regulations weren't adopted correctly, so there are no regulations to enforce. So,
I suspect that'll just be a procedural correction at some point.
yeah, their Attorney General has made it very clear that they intend to adopt these regulations the correct way, so. But good news is, Bellingham, we're in pretty good shape compared to a lot of other communities, so.
Needham just voted it down, yeah?
Did they? Kidding.
I mean,
anyway, so that's that. The other thing too, that's on the agenda, that Harmony bond reduction.
Yeah.
I have it prepared, but I need to run that by and discuss with DPW before I put it into your hands for a
Okay.
vote. So, I just didn't have time to do that yet. So,
Call for a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second,
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Nick, I.
Brian, I.
Bill, I.
Bill. Bellingham.